DGTS. Dumb guys talk about smart stuff.
Welcome to the podcast, Dumb Guys Talk About Smart Stuff. I'm Barry.
I'm Heath. And today we're going to talk about how our fantasy draft went. And we had a pretty fast and furious one and some pretty tough competition. So I actually think it was pretty exciting and I'm fairly happy with my team. I don't know how you feel, Barry.
I'm pretty happy with my team. In fact, bold statement of the day, I repeat as champion of our fantasy baseball league.
That is a bold statement, just especially because I think we have 10 very good teams in our league this year.
Yeah, I noticed that that there's a lot of good players out there, and all of the teams are pretty well balanced. A couple of teams out there that, stand out more than other ones, mine being one of those.
I think mine is going to make yours look pretty sad. But, I'm thinking there's actually a few other good teams, and I actually think every week's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
We're doing the head-to-head, and I don't think there's an easy team out there in our league.
Do you know what week you and I had go head-to-head first?
I don't know. I know I played my brother the first week.
Because I want to know when me and you go head-to-head, because I think you're going to be regretting the fact that you let me come back to this league.
Well, I don't know. I think Jose Abreu is going to hit 3 or 4 home runs that week and put you away.
You know what? That's a pretty good segue into the number one pick.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you were high on him pre-draft. You fell into the 7th position in our draft order, and you swooped him up. He fell right to you. What do you think about that?
I was high on him towards the end of the first round, largely because most guys do have that sophomore slump, which some people are worried that Abreu might have. But for one thing, he's a little bit older than a typical rookie. I think he's about 28. And what I noticed in my research is those really great players don't have as much of a sophomore slump. The ones that may perhaps aren't, they'll have it harder. Maybe the rookie season is more of an anomaly to where pitchers hadn't figured him out yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jose Abreu's actually got some talent. He might be adjusting this year. In spring training, it seems like he's adjusting by being more of a contact hitter and having a high batting average. But I think once he gets playing in Chicago, and it's good hitters ballpark, he's got new hitters around him. He'll have Melky Cabrera hitting in front of him, Adam Roche hitting behind him this year when they weren't there before. So I think RBIs will be there. I think batting average will be there. And I think he's easily going to get over 20 home runs.
One of the things I pointed out in our previous podcast was the fact that he fell off in the second half last year. His power fell off. His average was fine. He was hitting doubles, but his power numbers were pretty weak. I think he only hit like 6 home runs or something like that in the second half. It was pretty weak. Spring training, and it is spring training, so you can only say what there is to say. But his power numbers aren't there. His average is there. He is hit making contact. But his power numbers have dropped considerably since the second half of last season.
Yes, and the thing that is maybe most years this isn't the greatest guy to take, but I kind of looked at into the first round, second round not being that strong this year.
Yeah. You know what? In all of the case that I make against Abreu, I thought about it hard. I said, what would I do if Abreu fell to me? I think I chose beforehand that I was going to pass on him, but it was kind of a tough decision because you know what? No matter how you look at it, last year was pretty dominant, and if he repeats, he's going to be solid for you.
He will, and I think even say like a bad year would still be decent for most guys compared to last year.
Yeah, I think I predicted that he's going to hit between 20 and 25 home runs. You're not going to get first round worth out of him, but you know what? You took a shot at a sophomore. We'll see what happens.
Yes, and I noticed you took Jose Bautista. So how do you feel about that?
I did take Jose Bautista. So I was really big on Altuve, and I think I even said that I might take Altuve if I fall to 8th in draft order, which I fell to. But as I was sitting there looking at the options, I had a really hard time passing up Bautista, who had over 100 runs, 100 RBIs, 36 home runs or 35 home runs last year. If he comes even close to that this year, it was really hard to walk away from that. And I know he's 35. I know he's getting older, and I know he's had some injury years in the past, but he bounced back from those injury years to have that dominant season last year. He's also going to have Josh Donaldson in his lineup. Encarnacion, if he's healthy, is going to be in that lineup. So he's going to have the guys around him.
Yeah, he'll have Reyes batting in front of him.
Reyes batting in front of him. Hopefully Reyes stays healthy as well.
Yeah, and see, the risk I see with Jose Bautista is being the 35, and he's had wrist injuries, which that's problematic for power hitters from time to time.
Yeah, it could be, but he turned around last season. He did hit 35 home runs. He was healthy all year. I feel pretty good about how that wrist is doing. So I did pass up on Altuve, but an interesting point I would like to make about that is the guy in the number 9 position in our draft order picked up Altuve. He was obviously listening to what I had to say.
Yeah, and I think that's a consequence of having a podcast before our draft, is that some of our guys, I think, were seeing our strategy, because I saw Evan Gaddis go off the board right about the time I was about to take him, and I think we talked about him in our first podcast.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't give away all my secrets in the last episode, and as time went on, which is why we wait to do our draft, I reevaluated the situation, and I think I kind of shifted some things around, made some adjustments, and went with it from there.
So, something we talked about earlier today was if you had the first pick.
Yeah, right.
Would you take him? Mike Trout obviously went first in our draft.
Mike Trout went first. I even commented in the chat, because we do an online live draft. I commented in the chat, surprise, surprise. And the team that picked him up, BB Punks, he's like, who else do you take? And I said, you can't take anybody. Trout had to be first. I don't see any other way about it. I know you said you would take Stanton first.
That's
maybe.
Something I was debating on. And overall, it's just being in that first round, I think it would have been hard not to take Trout, just because it's expected. If he does great, you look like an idiot.
Yeah.
But Stanton, to me, is just going to be a beast.
Stanton is going to be a beast. And like I said to you earlier, if second pick, I take him 100%. First pick, I think it's really hard to turn down Trout. But they're both, I mean, it's like you win with one, you win with the other. It is a really hard one to lose on.
And one thing is that Trout's stolen base. Like the thing about Trout is he fills the stat line most years.
Exactly.
But his stolen bases took a sharp drop off this year.
They did.
They were down to 16. Guy like Carlos Stanton had 13, so they were pretty even in that area.
Yeah, Trout has dropped off 3 years consecutively on the stolen bases.
And I noticed, I think he's continually gaining weight. And I think he's gaining some muscle, so I think he's trying to be more of a power hitter.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere though that he was going to step up on the stolen bases this year. So I expect him to go back to over 20 stolen bases. I think he's going to be a little bit more valuable than those 16 that he had last year.
And one interesting fact about Guy and Carlos Stanton is Adrian Gonzalez led the National League in RBIs last year with D. Gordon batting in front of him. And D. Gordon with the Marlins, and he's going to be batting in front of Guy and Carlo now.
And I think that's great. And actually, I wanted D. Gordon too if he would have fallen to me. Because that's one thing. After I passed on Altuve for my second baseman, I mentioned this before, I figured I was going to wait really deep to get a second baseman. And every time I kept eyeing a second baseman, and every time he got swooped up before I had a chance to get to him, a second baseman did not fall within my strategy very well after Altuve. And I don't think I took a second baseman until deep into the draft. I took my second baseman 17th round. I picked up Daniel Murphy.
Oh.
And Murphy is I think he's hurt right now as well.
Yeah, well, I think he's a very safe guy to be 10 home runs, 10 steals type of thing. But I don't think you got a super high upside with him.
Yeah, and then I waited until the 22nd round and I picked up Jed Jericho. Jed Jericho he's got a lot of potential to be a comeback kid this year.
Yeah, well, I had him last year, so it's hard to go back to somebody that's such a letdown. He hit like 190.
Oh, yeah, no, he had a terrible season. That was his sophomore year, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's playing at Petco Park in San Diego, right?
Well, he was also given a huge contract, and I think maybe the pressure of that got to him.
Yeah, he was also dealing with injuries. I think he only played half the season. He was in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, well, he got sent down to the minors, so.
Yeah, so he did have some issues, but you know what? For second to last pick, I figured it was a chance I was going to take. It's really the one position that I feel weakest. But I feel like the rest of my team is dominant.
Well, and something, I almost had a little bit of an epiphany the day before our draft. And I totally changed my strategy in a little way. So most of my mock drafts, I was taking either Felix Hernandez or Anthony Rendon in the second round. And I started seeing Rendon falling on a lot of lists. He's injured right now. He's probably going to start the year on the disabled list. And I just kind of thought in our league somebody's going to grab up Felix Hernandez maybe in the first round because there's so many guys that are so high on pitchers.
Yeah.
So the day before, I changed my strategy to Troy Tulowitzki second round.
That was an interesting pick. I didn't even realize it was you that was picking him. When I saw him get picked, I was thinking, wow, someone's really high on Tulowitzki. And you know what? We've discussed this before. He's great. He's your number one shortstop. He's probably really high up in the first round if he wasn't so injury prone.
Yes.
So,
But the way I felt about it is in the second round, who out there could give me first round value?
yeah.
And I was really disappointed this year's second round. There's not anybody out there that I was super high on. I mean, maybe if Adam Jones fell to like the first pick of the second round. But other than that, wasn't that high on some of the people. And so I thought, why not take a risk of that guy that might actually be the number one producer this year if he's healthy all year?
Yeah. I took a shortstop right after you took Tulowitzki. So my second pick, Josh Donaldson. And let me just throw something out about Josh Donaldson. He's going to Toronto, Hitters Park, and there's been some debate about this on how much of a Hitters Park Oakland is. I read that it is hard on right-handed power hitters, but Toronto is a hitter's haven, and I think he's going to do well there. He's also getting put into a lineup with Bautista and Encarnacion. And Reyes, and I think it's going to be a good lineup. I've read in places they're picking him for MVP this year.
Yep, and I mean that could very well be a high upside guy. He's guy that could maybe touch 40 home runs if everything goes right.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be in the East. He's going to be playing at Yankee Stadium, where home runs go out like nobody's business.
Yeah. Well, the thing about him though is he kind of became more of an all or nothing hitter last year. His average dropped down to about 250.
Yeah, he's not an average guy. I didn't pick him up for his average, although they're predicting that his OPS is going to be over 900, which I could give a damn about his average as long as his OPS is good because that's the stat we care about.
Yes. Now, after that, I went pitcher, I believe. And I got Price and last year's Cy Young Award winner,
Kluber. Yeah. I saw Kluber up there quite a bit. And I think I had an opportunity to take him a couple of times, but I chose not to because I was focusing on... I had a plan when it came to pitchers. And my plan was to take some pitchers that were going pretty deep, that might have a little bit of risk behind them, but injury risk, that is. But if they don't get hurt, if they stay healthy, I think I got some major steals with these guys.
I think you did too, because you waited and you took Tanaka and Pineda way late.
That's right. I got Tanaka in the 14th round. No, in the 13th round. Sorry, he was my 13th pick. And Tanaka, in the first half of last year, put up Cy Young numbers. He came back in September and was healthy, and he's killing it in spring training.
Yes. And see, I actually did a mock draft where I had a similar strategy where I waited really late on pitching. But kind of what happened to me is some of the pitchers I was trying to wait on got snatched up right before I did. And so it's when that happens, your plan just completely goes out the window.
Yeah.
So if you waited that long and say that Tanaka had been snatched up on you, would you have had a backup plan?
Well, that's the thing too, and I was careful not to lose those guys. I think I took Pineda even a couple rounds before I planned on taking him, just to make sure I got him. Okay. And you know what? I don't think anybody would have drafted him. Not in our league.
I've had my eye on him, and I know my dad. He showed me a mock draft he did, and he took him.
Oh, really?
So,
see,
so I think you needed to take him a couple rounds early.
Yeah. So I did. So I was worried about it, and I got him so late, anyways. I mean, I got Pineda in the 16th round, so it was pretty late, anyways. But I feel like he just has some really good stuff, and if he stays healthy as well, he's going to dominate. He's killing it in spring training as well. So him and Tanaka, I think 2 steals for me in the pitching category. And then to round it off, I got Jordan Zimmerman. I kind of used him as my, let's lock in a solid pitcher who's going to get me some wins and have some good stats.
Yeah, Jordan Zimmerman ended last year very hot. He was somebody that I had taken in mock drafts. Didn't get him in our normal draft, but I think I'm pretty happy with the strikeout numbers I'm going to get with Price and Kluber as my first 2 pitchers.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I don't have a track record of in my pitching staff is strikeouts. But of course, I'm looking at previous year stats. I'm looking at guys that haven't been healthy or haven't even pitched in the majors for that long. So the strikeouts could be there. Price is going to strike out a lot of guys, but I don't feel great about his ERA. His ERA is usually pretty high.
In the low threes, so...
Yeah, low to upper threes. Wasn't he in the upper threes last season? Didn't he end?
I can't remember. I know a couple years ago he won a Cy Young, and it was like 2.9, something like that.
Yeah.
So he's never going to be, say, like a Felix Hernandez or Kershaw type ERA.
Yeah.
But I think he's a pretty sure bet on the wins and the strikeouts, plus a solid ERA.
Yeah. He's gonna be a guy that's going to get you by, and with the Tigers, he's going to get you wins because they're going to win some games.
Yes. Now, some highlights I think that I ran into. I went stolen base. I got both Billy Hamilton and Dee Gordon, the top two stolen base guys in the National League last year. I'm pretty high on Billy Hamilton, having a ridiculous stolen base year this year.
Yeah.
He's had some 100 stolen base years in the minors, so I think it's very easy he could push 70, 80 steals this year.
It's pretty interesting that you got both of those guys because you commented on the last episode that you'd like to put those guys up against each other in a race. And my comment back to that was, I want to see them race me all the way to the championship this year, meaning I was going to take those two guys, but you beat me to them both. Especially Dee Gordon, because Dee Gordon was the guy I was eyeballing for someone that might be able to fill that second base role for me when I missed out on Altuve, and I was waiting to go a little bit deeper. What round did you get Gordon?
Got him in round 6.
In round 6. See,
yes.
you took him a few rounds before I was willing to snatch up on him. So you beat me to him.
Yeah. Well, another thing I see his runs scored going up because he's going to have Mr. Beast, Giancarlo Stanton hitting behind him, and Michael Morse hitting behind him. So those are some good RBI guys. I think Ichiro's on that team now.
Yeah, Ichiro's on that team.
So I think they're going to have a decent lineup.
Yeah, plus that new Miami ballpark, it's a big ballpark. He might get some extra base hits to go in there, some doubles and triples.
Yeah, I was watching a spring game, and he got a triple in Arizona, which is usually smaller ballparks.
Yeah.
And he'll be so I think he could be taking advantage of doubles and triples, keep his OPS up there. I had a few pitchers that I had my eye on, but other people apparently did too. One was Matt Harvey, was one that I really wanted.
Oh, I passed up on Matt Harvey because you know what? Yes, I did take some guys with some injury history. This guy's coming back from Tommy John.
He is, but he's absolutely tearing up in spring training.
Yeah, he's been out for, a year and a half?
Yeah.
It was, I thought that somebody took him too soon.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I didn't have him going. He left the board right after my Dee Gordon pick.
So he went 7th in the 7th round?
Yeah, and but he is somebody that I wanted to be in my rotation, maybe as my 3rd or 4th best starter.
Yeah. Well, you see, and that's where it comes down to risk and reward, whereas I wasn't willing to take a 7th round risk on Harvey, who has injury risk. I was waiting for a 13th round risk on Tanaka. And so I feel better about my pick than I would have about that guy taking Harvey.
I kind of felt pretty good, though, because a couple rounds later I got Jacob deGrom, and that's somebody I'm pretty high on.
Yeah.
Rookie of the year last year, more strikeouts than innings pitched.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Mets have improved overall. I don't think their defense is that great, but I think you're going to see more production out of David Wright and Garrett. Oh, whatever that outfielder used to be a Yankee. His name is that they got in the Mets now. But
Granderson?
Yeah, Granderson. They had down years last year. I think you'll see them kind of bounce back, maybe give him Jacob deGrom some decent run support.
Yeah.
And I think reminds me a little bit of, say, rookie Lincecum. He's kind of a wild man, hard to hit, and Lincecum in his 2nd year won a Cy Young.
Yeah. Plus, big ballpark, good place to pitch.
Yeah.
Rounding out my pitching staff is Colin McHugh, and I have to be honest, I didn't even know who this guy was.
I still don't.
But he pitches for Houston. I read up on him a little bit. His stats last year were fantastic. He had 11 wins, 157 strikeouts, a 2.73 ERA, and a 1.02 WHIP. Those are some pretty good stats. Now he's playing in Houston. It was a risk. He was really a kind of a last-minute kind of fill of space because Alex Cobb is hurt right now and he's on the bench, and I also picked up Latos as a bench guy too, just to see how it goes. But I think Cobb is going to be my number 4 starter over McHugh, depending on how McHugh pitches and when Cobb gets back.
Yes. Now, a pick I was really surprised to see out of you is because you've always told me you would prefer veterans that have a good track record.
Yeah.
You took Mr. Cub rookie, Chris Bryant.
Oh, Bryant. So here's the thing. I have been reading up a lot about Chris Bryant. Everybody was super high on this guy. And it just so happened I was kind of keeping my eye on him. And with the strategy I had with taking Tanaka and Pineda late, I had an opening. And I saw him and I said, you know what? I'm going to take him. I'm going to put him in a utility spot and see what happens. I knew that he wasn't going to be starting the season with the Cubs, but I also knew that he was going to get called up pretty quickly in April after they lock in that 7th year. So, I took him in the 12th round. I took a shot in the 12th round. I think that's a pretty good area to take a risk on a guy.
And I do like taking those risks typically. It just surprised me because you always told me you like veterans.
Yeah, well, I do like veterans. Mm-hmm. And again, you wouldn't have found me taking him early on in the draft. But he fell to the 12th round, and I know there were a few people that said I took him too soon. They probably said that because they wanted him. But I got him, and we'll see how it plays out.
We will see how it plays out. He's going to start the year in the minors. He's already been demoted today, I believe. The one concern I would have at this point if I was his owner is that he's not playing good defense. And so I think the Cubs might keep him in the minors until they feel comfortable that they've found a position for him where he can play decent defense.
Right.
And what I've heard is they're going to try him in the outfield some.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard they're going to put him in left field. Mm-hmm. We'll see how that goes. I haven't read up much on his defense, but in spring training, he leads the league in home runs with 9. I think that's 3 more than anybody else. He's batting over 400. He's dominating on his hitting. So that's what I need him for. And as long as they could put him somewhere out there in the outfield, get him away from the ball, and just let him hit, it's going to work for me.
Yeah, it's kind of too bad that team already has a good first baseman, so they can't try him there.
Yeah. Who are the Cubs' first baseman?
It's Rizzo.
Oh, Rizzo, yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of guys that have good spring trainings all the time, but maybe haven't paid off yet, is I took Brandon Belt, and he's somebody that I've had for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Every year, waiting for him to have that break.
Giants fan.
He always has that huge spring training. He had a spring training in the past where he hit 409 home runs. I think he's about hitting 320 in this spring training.
Uh-huh.
He was off to a huge start last year. I think he's leading the league in home runs, and then he broke his thumb. And then he got a concussion.
That's a tough break, too.
It is. So I took him again. He's going to be a utility hitter for me, maybe a in and out one. It's with hopes that maybe this year it will be his
This will be his year that he breaks out, yeah. The only problem is he's playing in that gigantic ballpark, so his power numbers are going to get hurt.
Yeah.
But you know what?
I've been to a couple Giants games, and each time I went away going, the most impressive player there was Brandon Belt.
Yeah.
I saw Buster Posey hit, Hunter Pence hit, Angel Pagan hit. I think I saw them play the Pirates last year, and I saw McCutcheon hit. But Belt had just the ball coming off his bat is so loud.
Yeah.
I saw one where it looked like he swung and missed bad, and he got a 400-foot fly out. So he's got a lot of power. It's just that ballpark will take away a few of his home runs.
Yeah.
But he's a gap-to-gap hitter. He's got a little bit of speed. He had a minor league year with 20 steals, so that could turn into doubles and triples for the Giants.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he's got that breakout.
Well, and you can't blame the park on everything. I mean, Barry Bonds hit a ton of home runs there, juiced or no juiced, So if Belt's got what it takes, he can hit a home run there, and he could break out. I'm looking at my team, and there's one guy who has great potential, but he might be questionable. I'm not sure, and the main reason I took him is because of his stolen bases. That's Jacoby Ellsbury.
Okay.
I took him in the 4th round.
That's a second-round guy that I was looking at before I changed my mind to Mr. Tulowitzki. Because I think he could potentially have a 20-home run year in Yankee Stadium.
Well, I think he could. He hit 16 home runs last year, and I think he was injured a little bit, so he didn't play the whole season. So he's definitely got that potential, and he could have a big year. But I felt like, I feel like I took a little bit of a risk on him. He almost had 40 stolen bases last year, and that was kind of what I had in mind when I took him, because I don't have a lot of stolen bases on my team.
So is there a team out there in this league that you feel like is a big threat?
Well, I thought BB Punks had a pretty good team. He was the number 1 pick, so he got Trout. His pitching staff looks pretty darn good. I don't know if you have it up.
Yeah, I think he does have good pitchers, but it's pitchers that I'm not particularly high on myself.
Name them out to me real quick, just
He's
so we
got the Tiger Cy Young Award winner, Scherzer.
Oh, he's got Scherzer, who's going to pitch for the Nationals.
Mm-hmm. He's got Strasburg.
Strasburg with the Nationals, yep. He went back-to-back with those guys, I think.
Yeah, and he's got Adam Wainwright.
Wainwright's strong.
Wainwright, though, he had some problems at the end of the year. The Giants rocked him in the playoffs, and they said it looked like something's off with him. And I saw some lists saying stay away from him.
I saw him getting rocked in spring training as well. So.
And there's something about when he was playing the Giants where something was just not right. It seemed like his location, his velocity was off. I don't know. They're talking about some possible injury somewhere, and he's had missing full years in the past with injuries.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's got some sort of nagging injury that maybe makes control off, maybe similar to the problem Matt Cain was having.
Yeah. So that might be a risky guy for him. What rounds out his pitching staff?
Jake Arrieta, a pitcher. I don't know much about him. He's on the Cubs.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like he's a young guy. Got some good numbers. He's got Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah, he's got Chapman. Yep.
He's got Zach Britton as his other closer. So overall, I'm saying his pitching staff looks good.
On paper, his pitching staff looks good. There's variables there that could change that.
Yeah, he's got Strasburg and Wainwright that are injury problem.
He's got a pretty good looking lineup, although I think he's got some old guys like Pujols.
He has Pujols. He got Mike Trout. He was number 1 pick.
Yeah, Trout was the number 1.
But he's got Solar, which I think I can respect for taking a risk like that.
Well, he took Solar. I took Bryant. Two young Cubs prospects. The only thing is that I think he took Solar pretty early on.
Yeah. Also, he got Charlie Blackmon. That's somebody I wanted. I think he's a potential 20-20 or 30-30 type guy. Mm-hmm. Especially playing Colorado. Tulowitzki and Cardinal are back. He's hitting in a great lineup. A team that I was kind of looking at was my little brother's team, Westworld here. And I think he picked some good depth here. He took Kershaw in the first round. He got Lester.
I thought his pitching was rounding out pretty nicely as well.
He got Greg Holland as a closer.
I was questioning his lineup a little bit.
Well, one thing, he's got Rizzo. He's got Kadire. He picked up Bryce Harper. Now, Bryce Harper was a huge disappointment for me, but I don't think he's going to be a disappointment every year.
Not every year. I don't know if he's going to be that great big star that everybody was talking about. I still haven't seen it yet.
Haven't seen it yet, but the thing is, he's still ridiculously young. So if you compare his career arc to, say, somebody like Ken Griffey Jr., who's another guy, huge, started young, it took a couple years, and then Griffey Jr. kind of really hit his stride around 25, 26. And we're looking at Bryce Harper still being about 22, 23 years old. So he's still very young.
Yeah, he's still very young. He's still got a lot of opportunity there. Who'd you end up getting as your catcher? I know we touched on Gaddis. You didn't get to Gaddis. Someone swooped him up before you did.
Yeah, so being a Giants fan, if Buster Posey fell at the right spot, of course, I would have taken him.
I had my eye on Posey as well, but I was not living in an imaginary world where I wasn't playing a fantasy baseball league with a bunch of Giants fans, so I didn't expect to get him. I was getting him in all my fantasy draft or all my mock drafts because he was dropping to late 3, early 4. But I think he went pretty early here, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think he's an opportunity to have the best player at a position.
Yeah.
But catcher for me kept falling and falling, and so the first catcher I took was Wieters.
Oh,
or
Wieters,
however you pronounce it.
Yeah, Wieters is a good chance catcher. You got him pretty late. What round did you get him in?
Let's see. Let me see if I can find him in. I kind of reached for him just to make sure I got a catcher.
Yeah, he's coming back from injury, but he was a pretty strong offensive catcher when he was healthy.
He's 300 average, 20 home run type guy if he's healthy.
Yeah. I got Mesoraco.
The Reds guy?
I got the Reds guy. I'm high on him. I picked him up as a free agent last year, and he killed it for me through the 3/4 of the season. I think I stretched a little bit and got him to make sure that I had him locked in this draft. So I got him. Feel pretty good about it though.
Yes, and since Wieters is going to start the year, the disabled list, I also took Wilson Ramos. And he's somebody I picked in the past, just waiting for him to have that breakout year as well.
Yeah, you actually stole him from me because he was going to be one of my late round backup catcher picks, and you took him the round right before I was going to snatch him.
Yeah, he was my last pick. And what other baseball players survived being kidnapped? I mean, who's tougher than that?
Oh, damn. I haven't heard that story yet.
Oh yeah,
I'll-
kidnapped. Yeah,
I'll-
that's a good Google search.
I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick one guy out of your roster here to highlight, anybody that we haven't talked about yet that you want to touch on?
Well, one pick I really wanted Evan Longoria for third base because I think he's guy's been around for a while. He's going to be, and this is something we talked about earlier. He's going to be 29.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be, for some reason, guys just seem to have their career year. When
It's the magic year, 29.
Yeah. Miguel Cabrera won his Triple Crown that year, as an example, when he was 29.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a good mix of experience plus still being pretty young. And so Evan Longoria's coming to that, but since he was swooped for me, I ended up with Kyle Seager at third. And he's somebody that had 25 home runs in that big Mariners ballpark. So he's got some serious power.
Yeah.
And I think that lineup has improved this year. The overall team, I think, has improved. I think they might potentially be a contender in the American League West, especially with the A's kind of downgrading.
Yeah.
So I see him having maybe even more RBIs than the 96 that he had last year. So I think it's a decent compensatory pick for not getting Evan Longoria. Maybe he'll even have a better year than Evan Longoria.
Yeah. Yeah. Evan Longoria has been up and down.
Yes.
But he's a guy I think who has a lot of potential, and he's had some injuries I think as well that have kind of nagged him, so that's cut him down.
Yeah, but I looked into him. It's a guy that I picked. I think as a guy that might have a career year this year. But Kyle Seager, sky's the limit with him. He's still really young.
Yeah, he's young. There's a lot of possibility there, and he's in a lineup with some pretty good bats.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. There's a few guys that I picked up in the middle rounds that I'm kind of, I'm wondering how they're going to do. Like, they look good on paper. Todd Frazier, Cespedes, and Matt Holliday. Those three guys kind of are rounding out my lineup.
Cespedes is somebody I've been high on in the past. I think his swing looks like Willie Mays.
Yeah.
The swing he used to. He just never really quite put it together to have a huge year yet.
He hasn't. No, he's been hovering around 22 or 26 home runs a year.
But he's won the home run derby a couple years, so it shows that he just got huge power.
Yeah,
He's
he's definitely he's a Cuban. He's a big free swinger. He's in Detroit now.
Yeah.
Is that right? So
good.
that lineup might help him out. I mean, he's got Miguel Cabrera there to kind of to guide him.
Victor Martinez.
Yeah. So he might be good. Matt Holliday has always been real solid as well. Like, I think these are guys. At least Matt Holliday is a guy who I can count on to at least bring me those solid, consistent numbers.
Yeah, and I was fairly happy with getting Trumbo and Brandon Moss, because I think that they'll keep my team's home runs up. Trumbo could be a potential 30 home run guy this year, hitting Arizona.
Yeah. And then I wanted to point out a guy who I think might have a bounce back year this year. I drafted him last year. I think I drafted him pretty high, and he was hurt all year. Didn't give me what I wanted. That was Sin-Soo Choo. So I drafted him in the 18th round this year, and I think he can bounce back. He's in Texas, which is why I picked him up last year. Hitters Park. He's had good stolen base years in the past, and he's hit for 20 some home runs. So I think he could be a guy who bounces back and gives me that little extra push that my team needs.
Yes, and see, like, when I look at my team, I could see disaster or I could see a championship.
I'm a little bit more optimistic. I see championship in my team.
I think I can't go anywhere but up after last year. My team was basically the injury ward. I mean, it seemed like I was just bad luck to guys. I picked them up, they got hurt.
Yeah, and that happens sometimes. I mean, you can't do anything about it. I mean, I think my first pick one year was Matt Kemp, the year he was out most of the season.
Well, last year, just to give you an idea, I had Ryan Braun, who had the nagging injuries that held his year down. I had Garrett Richards, who had that bad knee injury. Jose Fernandez, who was the best pitcher in baseball up until he got Tommy John surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just getting started. Bryce Harper was another one, injury problems.
Yeah.
And so basically my team was just injuries last year.
Yeah, and sometimes it just comes down to, making that special pull off the free agent wire, getting those guys to fill in.
Yeah, and it always seems like there's that young pitcher that really breaks out.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. I know I had, who was that guy for Arizona a couple years ago? He came out of the woodworks and he just killed it. I can't remember his name, but I was watching a game. I was watching a Yankees game where they were playing Arizona, and this guy came out and just blew the Yankees away. And I was like, I'm getting that guy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, every year there's a guy like that you just,
Well, I mean, Matt Harvey and Jose Fernandez are past waiver wire pickups for me.
Yeah.
They're huge.
Yeah.
So, overall, I'm feeling pretty good about my team. I think my closers might be my weaker part. But
Who are your closers?
I got Dylan Betances, who's not guaranteed to be a closer this year.
Oh, yeah, that's a risky one right there. Absolutely. Could pay off, but...
It could, if he's not doing too well in spring training, so he may not start the year as a closer. I got Joaquin Benoit. It's French.
Yeah,
whatever. Benoit. Who's going to be the Padres closer, who I think the Padres are going to have a good pitching staff. They have a great manager in Bud Black. I mean, former Giant.
Right, of course.
So they know how to pitch.
Now, wasn't Benoit the guy that was blowing all those saves for Detroit and got booted from the closer's role?
I don't know, but last year...
oh, no, that was Valverde.
That
was Valverde.
Now, Benoit, he was a part-time setup man, part-time closer. He had a 1.49 ERA, 0.77 whip.
Yeah.
64 strikeouts and 54 innings pitched. So he was very dominant, and so I think he could carry that over this year. And as kind of my insurance, I got Sean Doolittle, who's on my bench, who's going to start the year just on the disabled list. But I think we'll have a chance to see how that New York Yankees closer spot works out, and if it doesn't work out, I can stick Sean Doolittle in.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But although he's still an A, right?
Doolittle's an A.
Yeah. So if they're not going to win a lot of games, might not get a lot of saves.
Yeah.
My closers, I got Drew Storen, and he racked up. Let me see. He only got 11 saves last year, but I think he looked pretty good. And I think he's going to be their closer full time this year.
That's the
Nationals.
Nationals. Yes.
Nationals. And I mean, we know the Nationals are going to win a lot of games. Their pitchers are going to go deep and hand him the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good one. And then Fernando Rodney, I picked him up. He got 48 saves last season, pitching in Seattle now with the big park. I think it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised at how lowly he was ranked, because I think he led the American League in saves. And he had good ERA. I just don't think. I think he's had years in the past where he's kind of inconsistent.
Yeah, his whip's not great either for a reliever. He's got a pretty high whip at 1.34.
And some of those closers are wild, man. It's either they walk the guy or they strike him out. So
Yeah.
he might be one of those guys.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I did wait on the closers until pretty late, but it rounds out a pretty decent team. And all in all, I looked at my team after the draft and I was like, damn, I got a good team. I feel pretty confident with this team. I feel like my offense is better than it's been in several years of fantasy. And I think I got that because I was able to get those steals in the pitching categories. Whereas normally I would really balance out. I'd take hitter, I would take pitchers early on to make sure I had some solid players on both sides. This time I think those 2 steals in the pitcher category really put my hitting over the top. I feel like I'm going to dominate.
Do you have a backup plan? Because Tanaka and Pineda have had any of your problems, and I've heard talk the Yankees are going to go with a 6-man rotation, which could cut down on your innings for those guys.
I don't think the Yankees will really go with a 6-man rotation. I mean, it's hard enough to find a 5-man rotation. What they're going to do is because of the way the schedule is for the first few weeks, Tanaka is going to be on 6 days of rest. That's going to be like for his first 3 starts.
Uh-huh.
But I think they're going to go with a 5-man rotation. If one of those guys gets hurt, I think I do have some people to fill those holes, like Alex Cobb when he comes back. I think he could be really solid. And Latos, who pitched well for... didn't Latos pitch for St. Louis a couple years ago? I know he's...
I think he's on the Reds.
The Reds. That's right, the Reds. Now he's with Miami.
Uh-huh.
So he's pitching in that big ballpark. That could be beneficial. And like you said, there's always that guy that breaks out. So if I just watch the waiver wire, if it gets to that point, I might be able to pull a guy in that will support me. But I feel pretty good about Tanaka and Pineda. These guys I think they're gonna dominate.
We'll see.
We will see. I think that brings us to the end here. Anything else you wanna add before we wrap this up?
I'm just hoping we have a future podcast where I'm celebrating my championship later this year.
You know what? If it makes you feel better, we could do a mock one. Or we just celebrate your victory? You're not going to win because I got this one in the bag.
Oh, we'll see about that.
All right. Well, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, like us, and comment. Tell us about your draft. Tell us who you got. Tell us what you think about our teams because we want to know. And
yeah, definitely. And we got a lot of new podcasts coming up. We've got the Alien one that's going to be fun. We're going to have some special visuals in that one. We're going to have a special guest. So stay tuned for that. And just stay tuned in general to our channel. I mean, we're growing and we're brand new. So you want to be one of our first fans for sure.
That's right. All right. Have a good one.
Later.